Thank you, Terry. Some say he's a legend, some say he's the legend. Today, we honor Terry Funk, who passed away at the age of 79. Also, Austin Theory doesn't know why the wrestling world is not on board with his booking, so today we once again fill him in as to why there's no connection. MJF would like the end of tribalism in the wrestling world. There's just one problem with that. Edge to AEW. We talk NXT Heatwave. We discuss Dynamite from last night from AEW. All of this and much more coming up in today's Amped Up podcast for Thursday, August 24th, 2023. Let's get amplified! And there's only one way to start this podcast off today, and that is by paying the most amplified of respect to Terry Funk, who recently passed away at the age of 79. Some say he's one of the greatest. Some say he is the greatest. Some say he's a legend. Some say he's the legend. One thing for sure, many, and I do mean many, of the wrestlers you see today in that ring were captivated and influenced by Terry Funk. So much love, much respect, much appreciation, much strength, power and prayer over to Terry Funk's family, friends, loved ones. When we say gone but not forgotten with somebody like Terry Funk, that's an understatement. You could never forget the career of Terry Funk. Hundreds of years from now, they'll be talking about Terry Funk. I really started to get into Terry Funk's career during ECW's days. Now, by then, Terry Funk was already way more than established. I wasn't that old in age yet, so I was still learning about Terry Funk, but watching ECW, you quickly realized why generations before were so captivated by this dude. And no matter his age, the older he got, he didn't just hang with the young ones. He was showing them that they got to get up to his level still. Terry Funk, man. I just want some prominent people through Terry Funk's career, sending out that love and respect over to Terry Funk and his loved ones. So I just want to kind of go over what they're saying as well, starting with the Nature Boy Ric Flair. Ric Flair says, and I quote about Terry Funk, this is a quote from Ric Flair, "In my entire life, I've never met a guy who worked harder. Terry Funk was a great wrestler, entertainer, unbelievably fearless, and a great friend. Rest in peace, my friend Terry Funk, knowing that no one will ever replace you in the world of professional wrestling." End quote. With many prayer emojis, and he's so correct. I mean, it's not even about who's greater, who's more of a legend, who leaves behind more of a legacy. When you say one of a kind, it's an overused phrase and statement, but only a certain group of individuals are truly one of a kind. Terry Funk is the mold for that. He literally, you broke the mold when you made Terry Funk. He's the definition of one of a kind. So I think Ric Flair's, words on Terry Funk, man, they're just ever so true. I also want to read you guys what Mick Foley had posted, because Mick Foley is, for a lot of us, man, when you think Terry Funk, you literally immediately think Mick Foley. And I one of the memories I have, I'll never forget this. It was Hell in a Cell. Maybe 97, 98. Mick Foley was in there with The Undertaker. It was Hell in a Cell. Mick Foley was legit in the ring, knocked for a loop. He was knocked out. He was done. His tooth was up his nose. He was gone. The lights were on, but nobody was home, basically. Mick Foley was out. So to buy some time, Terry Funk tells The Undertaker, rock me. I forgot what it was, like a chokeslam or a tombstone. Maybe it was both. And this dude literally got chokeslammed or tombstoned out of his shoes. He took that bump. That was not planned. But he was trying to buy Mick Foley time. So Terry Funk tells Taker, rock me on this, man. Take me out. So Mick got an extra couple of minutes. Terry Funk is out of his shoes. So you got Mick Foley with a tooth up his nose. Terry Funk's shoes are off and just sitting in the ring. Later on, thumbtacks were scattered around. I'll never forget that, man. That's the type of dude Terry Funk was, and he was already pretty older at that point. If you're going back late 90s, you would look at 69, I don't know, he's well past 50 at that point. Not saying that that's old per se, but for this dude to be getting rocked off out of his shoes by The Undertaker when he wasn't even supposed to take a bump, but just checking on his friend, knew he needed a few minutes. I just love that story, and it's something I'll always remember. So anyway, Mick Foley says, and I quote, Terry Funk is gone. I just talked to Terry's daughter, Brandy, who gave me the awful news. He was my mentor, my idol, one of the closest friends, and he was the greatest wrestler I ever saw. If you get the chance, look up a Terry Funk match or a Terry Funk promo and give thanks that this incredible man gave so much for so long to so many. There will never be another like him. May God bless Terry, his friends, family, and all who loved him. R.I.P., my dear friend. It was an honor to know you. R.I.P. Terry Funk. So very emotional there by Mick Foley. Again, for so many of us, you kind of equate Terry Funk with Mick Foley. So that's his statement on that, and he'll be closely tied with all of Terry Funk's loved ones going forward, and he will be the flag bearer of keeping Terry Funk's legacy alive. Not that it needs a flag bearer, because Terry Funk did a well enough job in his career and beyond that you just can't forget a career like that. But Mick Foley will be leading that charge to make sure people always know what Terry Funk did for this business. Also, a couple more I just want to go over, man. Kevin Owens paid a really cool tribute. Kevin Owens says the following about Terry Funk, and I quote, I don't really come on here anymore, meaning social, I'm guessing, the interweb machine. I don't really come on here anymore, but I had to today to say that Terry Funk was the absolute best of us, and that getting to be in the ring with him 10 years ago is and always will be one of the absolute highlights of my career, bar none. To this day, I still often think back on that night and shake my head in disbelief at the absolute privilege and incredible luck I had to get to be here in there with him. The energy and aura that Terry Funk carried with him into the ring that night is something I had never experienced before and have not experienced since. And I've been in there with some pretty crazy names. I'll never forget it. Terry Funk, forever. That's saying something, right? When he says I've been in there with some pretty crazy names, you just think back to just recently, I should say, a year or two ago was a WrestleMania previous year, Stone Cold Steve Austin and Kevin Owens. But he's saying that the energy and the aura that Funk carried with him into the ring that night was something he'd never experienced before and never has since. Not even Stone Cold Steve Austin brought the aura that Terry Funk brought. Interesting. Even Jim Ross showing that love too. Jim Ross says, and I quote, I loved him like family. Terry was a brilliant mind, absolutely amazing ring psychology. He was physically and mentally as tough as a $2 steak. That's definitely Jim Ross, right? But Ross goes on to say, one of my all-time favorites in my near 50 years in pro wrestling, Terry was special, and he was brave enough to reinvent himself multiple times. I'll give you guys another little story here, especially younger fans that don't know, but Terry Funk played a character called the Chainsaw Charlie. It's, I guess, just a really bad version of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, maybe. I don't know, but he would run around with Mick Foley with a chainsaw and like pantyhose over his head or something. It was really odd, but he was willing to do that, and to this day, we we remember Terry Funk kicking ass with pantyhose and a chainsaw. And he wasn't afraid to do such, man. And it did not ruin him. We didn't look at him any less. We said, damn, this guy's the best. So another little story there, man. Chainsaw Charlie was his name. So you think about 50, like Jim Ross says, one of my all-time favorites in my near 50 years in pro wrestling. Well, guys, every one of those years, up front, Terry Funk was there for them. So if anybody knows, man, how many times this dude had to reinvent himself, it's like a chameleon, and not everybody gets to do that or knows how to do that correctly. You know, Chris Jericho is one of those individuals that can reinvent himself time after time and stay with the times and stay relevant. Aside from like a handful of dudes, you don't really do that, man. Terry Funk, Chris Jericho, and maybe a few others. So, guys, anyway, I mean, we could be here for hours just going over every one of these legends that are paying respects over to Terry Funk. But, again, I will... And WWE, by the way, released a good tribute to Terry Funk as well. A very nice tribute video package that they do. Very nice. I expect that will be played on SmackDown tomorrow night. But on behalf of the Amplified channel and all of my Amplified unit, from channel members to the Red Team to the entire unit, a microcosm of the bigger pro wrestling audience, allow me to say much love, much appreciation, much respect to Terry Funk and all of his loved ones, man, carrying on that legacy, and we will be doing the same. All right, moving on, because we do have to move on. We'll try to lighten up the room a little bit, right? Try to celebrate something. How about we do that before we get into some of these bigger discussions? If you want to celebrate something, it is indeed the birthday, the 24th of August. Think about it, right? You know what that means. Much love to Big Brody Lee. But it's the 24th of August. You know what that means. It is the birthday of damn it, tell him, BC. Tell him, you doofus son-in-law. It is Vincent Kennedy McMahon's birthday today. Some of you guys will celebrate that in a small way. Others will absolutely want to, you're probably throwing up a little bit. Oh, no, we are not celebrating, BC. No, thank you. Whichever side of the fence you're on with Vincent Kennedy McMahon's birthday, it is his 78th birthday, guys. 78. If you're a little bit older, you've been watching decades of pro wrestling, isn't it hard to believe that Vince McMahon is not far away from 80 years of age? 80! 78 years old, man. Vince McMahon's birthday. Just thought that was I don't know. Did that really lighten up the room? We start with the unfortunate news of Terry Funk. I try to lighten up the room, and I'm sure I just made it maybe even darker for people, man. Oh, man, we got to celebrate Vince McMahon. Oh, man. Props. Before we get into these bigger stories, guys, big props to Will Osprey, man. I wasn't able to catch a lot of Dynamite, obviously. Just too much business on top of travel. I couldn't catch all of Dynamite. But what I did catch, man, was Will Osprey just cutting an immaculate promo on Chris Jericho. Immaculate, guys. Talking about, like, is this just a vanity project for you? Like, it's just another notch in your belt. For me, this is my career. He's like, I got a what did he say? Like a 4-year-old stepson? He's like, I got kids. I got a stepson. I got to worry about how I'm going to put him through college. This is the match of my life. It's going to define my career. This is just another match for you. This is everything for me. I mean, you felt those words, bro. Osprey was phenomenal. I mean, you truly believed like he was going, like this is a UFC battle. Osprey, like that, okay, he can do all the cool moves in the world. It's not going to matter at the end of the day. I remember Nash took a lot of heat, Kevin Nash, Diesel. He said, okay, that's great. You're pulling all these 5-star matches, right? Everybody's talking about all these this is awesome matches and fight forever matches, right? How much merch are you really pushing? How much money have you made through merch? There's a reason you've been doing this for years and you can't even put your kid through college yet. You don't even have enough money to put a kid through college, right? Nash pretty much saying that. How much merch have you pushed? And he took a lot of heat for that because Osprey is pretty well respected in the business and he's a phenomenal talent. But what Nash meant was you need more, man. If you're just going by your in-ring ability, right? There's so many amazing talents. Vikingo will captivate you from moment one to the end, but it's not memorable. You won't go back and you're not going to watch too many Vikingo matches 3, 4, 5 times. You're not going to do that. You'll go back, you'll watch Warrior and Hogan from WrestleMania 6, 2 talents that don't even wrestle that great, you would say, but you'll go back and watch that 1,000 times. You felt something, right? Your moves will get you so far. In the moment, they'll scream, "This is awesome," and fight forever. In the moment, people will go on social and start rating your matches with a bunch of gold stars. But it's not going to be it's not going to be memorable, and they're not going to go back and watch it many times. You're not going to push a lot of merch, and you're only going to go so far. Nash was actually right. You have to check every box off. You got to be really good on the microphone. You have to be believable. People have to believe in wanting to see that match, pay money to watch you take on somebody. And it's got to be more than just, wow, that's going to be a good match. Can you imagine the moves they're going to do? Last night, Osprey showed the world that on that microphone, he can put a match and even a story on his back because he told you a story. You're already the legend. This is just another notch in your belt to beat somebody like Osprey. For me, I got to put my kids through college. I got a family to support. I've been doing this for years and I'm not where I want to be. And he says that match, I love this. He says, this is basically a quote. He says, that match came at the right time because in just a few months, my contract is up with New Japan Pro Wrestling. In other words, whether it's WWE or AEW, I'm cashing in. And this is my meal ticket. This match with you defines the rest of my career. Will Osprey last night. I had to give major props before I went a moment more into this podcast. Much respect over to Osprey and a few other things that I got glimpses of last night. I wish I could tell. I'm probably missing some good stuff that happened and I just missed it. That's why. Wasn't able to catch the whole show. But when I caught glimpses, I liked what they were doing, how they and I'll talk a little bit more about this later throughout the podcast, I'm sure, but how they wrote Phoenix off of All In and didn't just say he's off of All In. No, they actually took the time to show you why. Ortiz, Santana, as we said in a podcast recently, I told you guys, not only are they about to return, but together. Forget about the turmoil they had. I was hearing they're coming back together. And I thought that was phenomenal. Sitting down FTR with the Young Bucks, with Renee in the middle. I always love those type of interactions to progress a wrestling match and story. So I don't know if you guys thought AEW was good or not. I don't know if it was or not. I didn't see the whole show, but I saw glimpses of good. Aussie versus Hardys for the main event does nothing for me, so I gladly missed that. Maybe it was really good. I heard the Hardys were defeated. I don't know how the night started. I didn't see MJF or Adam Cole. I didn't get to see a lot, but I saw a lot of positive last night going into All In, which is at this point 3 nights away. And we're going to be talking much more about that too. Coming up later, guys, I didn't tease this in the cold open teaser, but we're going to talk the changes that were made last night to All In. Pretty significant. And as I told you in yesterday's podcast, those changes are coming, and there's going to be even more. That is per Tony Khan's words via quote. So, all right, moving on. Let's go to Austin Theory. This is a good one. So Theory was recently on a cast, and he was asked about those that say it's just not working out. He doesn't captivate the audience. Here's a theory. Go back to the drawing board and do a real reset. Make people care. Make John Cena believe, and people like Cena in the business, that they can believe that you are truly one of the next big things. Make them believe that one day this company will not have to pipe in boos to make it seem like you're getting a reaction. This is one of the most respected dudes in the business, John Cena, telling you that in the middle of the ring. because IRL, he really had doubts about putting over Theory at WrestleMania. He expressed those doubts to the company. He still went along with it, and here we are months later, and still no connection. So, of course, a lot of fans, BC included, who still see potential in Austin Theory, will be the first to say this isn't working. We want the best for the dude, best booking and booking that we care about. Everybody will win in the process. There's a lot of fans that know that this theory does nothing for them. That's very real. That's not throwing shade at the dude. That's not wanting bad for the dude. That's not wanting the dude to lose his job. It's we want better. We actually want to care when Austin Theory is in that ring, or on the microphone, or doing a backstage seg. So Theory was asked, what about those people that say you're just not working out? The naysayers, as it was asked. And Theory responds like this, and I quote, "To me, it's almost crazy being told that I don't believe in myself." I believe he's referring to John Cena, telling him that face-to-face, middle of the ring. So he goes on to say, this is a quote from Theory, "I saw John Cena, he was in the middle of the ring on Raw. Now look where I am. I got to Monday Night Raw. I'm on SmackDown now. How are you going to tell me that I didn't believe in myself? Who is 26 years old that's done the things that I've done in the WWE? And people always have something to say." Well, there's been a lot of young dudes that have accomplished so much and even more, way more than Austin Theory at 26 years old. There's the Randy Ortons, there's the Lesnars, and there's so many others. So I don't know why he thinks 20. I mean, look what MJF is doing at his age. He's what, 27, 28 tops? Anyway, I don't know. This is Theory going on with this quote, and people always have something to say. He says, I mean, let's take it back to the Money in the Bank contract. Oh, Theory, you do not want to do that, bro. The best thing for Theory is to let people, just let them try anyway, to forget about that whole Money in the Bank debacle. But Theory says, and I quote, "Let's take it back to the Money in the Bank contract. When I lost that, my career was supposedly over, and then look what I did. I had the greatest United States Championship run of all time. And if I decide to go back and grab that title again, then I will." Okay, first, let me just cut that off. Hold on. Take it back to Money in the Bank contract. When I lost that, my career was supposedly over. And then look what I did. I had one of the greatest I had the greatest United States Championship runs of all time. What are you... To this day, fans cannot fathom what happened with that Money in the Bank contract cash-in debacle. You cashed in on a Monday Night Raw, not even the main event, the middle of a Monday Night Raw, for the mid-card United States Championship. Never before have we seen somebody tuck their balls between their legs and not go for the actual World Championships. The mid-card title. During an open challenge, mind you. He didn't even need to cash in. He just needed to answer the open challenge for the U.S. title. Nobody could fathom what was happening live. And to this day, many, many months later, nobody can fathom that decision by Paul Levesque McMahon, who we come to find out it was his call. He admitted it was his call. So how do you think people were going to perceive Austin Theory? Why do you think John Cena and so many others have to laugh when they think about this dude's booking? And on top of that, he lost. He went for the mid-card title, cashed in during an open challenge, and he lost the match. Lost the briefcase, lost it all. And the reset that supposedly happened under Paul Levesque McMahon was he put the cell phone down. That's it. It's the same theory. Gets the cheap shots, runs away, has the little mean mug or the prissy, cocky, arrogant look. It's the same theory, he just put the cell phone down. And he mean mugs a little bit more. Say, but maybe I'm focused on the head of the table now. Maybe you're focused on the head of the table. You mean Roman Reigns? Guys, that doesn't make sense because a week after the failed Money in the Bank cash-in, his excuse for not going after Roman in the World Championships was because, in his words, he wasn't going to beat him anyway. Let's be honest. He's on top of his game. Nobody can take the title off of Roman. So he went for the mid-card title. You know, the same U.S. title that he had already won previous and that he was already entangled with Sethington Rollins and Bobby Lashley for multiple months at that time. So he was no reason to cash in on a mid-card championship. But his words were that I didn't want to take on Roman. I didn't feel I could beat Roman Reigns. There was no way, let's be honest. So I went for the mid-card title. Now, all of a sudden, and just a few months later, he said he wants to be in the Royal Rumble to earn a shot at Roman Reigns. That didn't make sense. You had the briefcase. You didn't have to go through 29 other guys to get to Roman. You had the briefcase, the golden ticket. You were the man. You were number one. Now, all of a sudden, you want to go through 29 other dudes to get back to the position you said you didn't want to be in. It didn't make sense then. It doesn't make sense now that now he wants Roman Reigns, now that he doesn't have a briefcase. I'm focused on the head of the table, maybe. He says maybe the workhorse, Sethington Rollins. He says that's a funny one, too, calling him the workhorse. But look how many titles I defended. Oh, how many times? How many times I defended the United States Championship? He says it's 11 times, by the way. It's not an astronomical number. He says, look up how many matches Austin Theory has had in 2023, and I'm sure it's more than Sethington Rollins. But those are the things that people don't want to realize because they know how great I am. First of all, you only had a couple matches more than Sethington this year. Only, literally a couple guys. 60 some odd for Theory and 60 some odd for Sethington. I did the research. So you didn't even have that many more. You had literally 2 more, bro. Then he says people don't want to realize because they know how great I am. I understand. There's promos where you're fully in character, and then there's ones where you really got to read the room. Read the room. This is the same Theory saying the same shit for 2 years now, and it just isn't working. This is where he says, I just want to go back when he says, it's crazy that when people like John Cena says, I don't believe in myself. How is that crazy? You said on camera you don't want to face Roman because you don't think you can. You know you cannot beat him. You said that. How is everybody else supposed to take you? You don't want to cash in on the world title because you don't believe you're going to beat the champion. I've never heard of anything like that. And then you go on a podcast and say it's crazy when people say I don't believe in myself. Is it really that crazy when you yourself said you don't believe in yourself? All of these illogical gaps in what he says. And I could keep going on and on. Guys, this is not shade to Theory, trust me. I've been an advocate for Theory. Very much so on this channel. But when you keep saying everything that makes people befuddled, scratch their heads and go, wait, that doesn't make sense. Every time he opens his mouth, it doesn't make sense. And it's not helping a character that is already dry, bland, and beyond boring. I understand that may be harsh. But it's honesty. It's truth. It's to help this dude in the future, the company and the fans, actually get an Austin Theory that works. And we can't start that process unless we're honest. So he still holds this little mini grudge with John Cena for what he did in the ring. Listen, what John Cena did in that ring, it's savage, okay? No doubt. And it's not the first time he's done it. He has ripped people apart in the middle of the ring. Roman Reigns, it took a long time to come back from the annihilation that John Cena verbally gave Roman Reigns when Roman forgot his lines. And John Cena said, it's called a pro. He said, take your time. It's called a promo, kid. If you're going to be the big dog, you're going to have to learn how to do them. That's a quote. And he said it in the middle of the ring with a live microphone, not for a house show, for Monday Night Raw's audience. And that's when they were still pulling over 2 million viewers, bare minimum. Or most, I should say. That was their maximum. But still, at least it was over a couple million viewers on a Monday night. Not like anymore, where they're pulling a 1.5 and their only opposition is a preseason football game. But Roman Reigns, just one of many, like Austin Theory and many before him. Is it the right way to go about business? Absolutely not, because a lot of these wrestlers that are not captivating yet, and that was at a time where Roman was being pushed by the company full force. And when I say full force, I mean full force down everybody's throat. But he wasn't captivating yet. They were trying to force him as the face. They wanted John Cena to give him that rub, take some L's to him. And John Cena did exactly what he did to Roman, what he did to Theory. He says, I'm going to rip you apart. If you can come back from this, you'll be the guy. Roman, it took years. He had to turn heel. They did the bloodline thing, and now we got the Roman we always knew was somewhere in him. Like Rocky Maivia needed to be the Rock. Face Roman had to be the heel Roman. Bloodline Roman. Because we knew there was a better Roman than what we were getting. But at least Roman did. That's why there's hope for Theory, but it needs to be a complete rehaul. It needs to be a complete reset, a real one, not just putting down a cell phone. Roman was actually able to come back, and he's a better Roman now because of it. We're hoping Theory follows that trajectory. Cena sets him up for that. Again, is it the way to go about business? Man, if you don't have that it factor, if you don't find the recipe for success, it could absolutely derail you the way that John Cena rips them apart middle of the ring. So now is the time to see if Theory can bounce back from it. But yeah, today we still talk about that promo that John Cena ripped apart Theory. We are talking about how Theory is boring and not captivating. We're talking about that. We're talking about piped in boos. We're talking about him losing the U.S. title and nobody even cares about it. Nobody cares about the fact that he lost the title after many, many months of holding it. That's a problem. Instead, we're talking about Santos and Ray. Ray got it over Santos? Why wasn't it LA Knight? Every conversation we had nothing to do with Theory. And the only conversation involving Theory losing the title was everybody saying, thank goodness that was long overdue. Having a parade and a party because Theory isn't champion anymore. That's the truth. These are facts. You gauge the community. You see the conversation is that Theory with the title did nothing. Theory without the title, you wouldn't even know the difference. One did not wash the hand of the other. So go back to the drawing board. And if this dude ever wins a championship in the future, or you anoint him a king of the ring and put a crown on his head, or you give him another briefcase to walk around with, I hope it's done correctly. With the right procedures put in place, the right care, the right effort, the right energy, creative, and booking to back this dude to the point where the company will benefit because the fans give a shit. But instead, it looks like everybody's willing to turn a blind eye. The company itself, oh, everything's fine. Theory is fine. We'll pipe in the booze more. We just need a couple more, 2-3 more things with Theory. He'll get over eventually. The company turns a blind eye. Theory turns a blind eye. Doesn't know what he's doing wrong. Look at me. I'm 26. I'm great at what I do. I had a great championship reign. People love me. None of this is true, other than the fact that you're young. Good for you. Keep that youth. But the greatness isn't showing itself. Good wrestler, no doubt, but professional wrestling needs larger-than-life characters that we care about. Are you any of those? I don't see those boxes checked off yet. But if he's going to still be delusional and think that it's just the fans, we don't know what to like. We don't know. We should be loving Austin Theory, so they don't know what they're talking about. I'm amazing, right? If we're just going to keep repeating this vicious cycle, then that's what it is. Pretty damn vicious, because nobody's going to win in the process. Certainly not the company, certainly not Austin Theory, and certainly not the fans. Moving on. Edge to AEW. Let's go there. Not to AEW. Unless you really want to see Edge in AEW, then okay, then you're saying let's go there. But let's go there topic-wise, story-wise. Let's talk about Edge to AEW. The latest report that you're seeing out there in the pro wrestling world is Edge is AEW bound, rejoining with his good buddy, like a brother, Christian. I don't know how much I believe in this. I asked my people, my, if you will, sources. They heard nothing about this. Nothing more than every one of us was already speculating on. So I wish I had more for you. When they tell me they have nothing more, that means they're hearing nothing. And that's both of my quote sources. So because of that, and I surely have heard nothing more from any other reputable source, I don't know how much I believe in this story, but the report is out there, so we will discuss it briefly. The report states that Edge tried to make a new deal work with WWE, but WWE was not willing to match what Edge desired. Some of the steps that he had, WWE didn't think it was worth it at this stage of Edge's career. So, the belief is now that Edge will indeed show up in AEW. Now, his last match has already been performed. That was his last match on his contract, and WWE got upset because he actually said that recently, right? Before that SmackDown match, he said, "This is my last match. My contract is finished." It was finished after WrestleMania, then they extended it through SummerSlam. He wasn't even used for SummerSlam. And then, even the extension is done. So he went and said, okay, that's my last match, contract done. And WWE got upset, of course, because they're like, what are you doing, bro? Now you're going to raise buzz for All In, which is it's next week, which is obviously this weekend, Sunday. But at the time of that match, they were saying it's next week. It's the 27th. People are going to think you're showing up in AEW now. Why did you say your contract is done? So then he went in a bunch of interviews. He's like, no, it's not till the end of August or September, one of the two, August, September. He's like, it's after All In, I assure you. WWE was furious. Now, I don't know if this is a true report. Maybe that was the final nail in the coffin for WWE. Like, dude, you can't do that. And we know Paul Levesque McMahon does not like AEW. Does not like AEW. With a passion. The final nail in the coffin for Paul Levesque's NXT, when he was in charge of it fully, was AEW booting him off of Wednesdays. And that was it for Paul Levesque McMahon in NXT. So there's always that grudge, of course, but I don't know. Maybe they were so pissed off. I told you that was a real report. They were pissed off at Edge. And to the point where I was hearing it enough to give it to my audience. And sure enough, now all of a sudden we're hearing, nope, he's severing ties with WWE for good. Maybe that had something huge to do with it. But now, evidently, he's going over to AEW, and if he's not able to make the two appear, I doubt. I'm sure he would give WWE the grace period of All In and All Out. Whether the contract is truly into September or not, I'm sure he would not show up to All In and All Out a week later, right? You gotta believe that. So, October, I guess, right? Maybe November. Set up something big. Make sure you have something big. I'm just saying, if this is gonna happen, they can't just let this fall to the wayside. You know, AEW has so many big names, guys. If you really think about the talent AEW has that you probably don't even think about half the time. You have to remind yourself they're even in the company. Guys you thought could have been bona fide main eventers like Keith Lee. Which is odd enough. Funny to bring that up because Keith Lee, there was rumors and reports that he had walked out of AEW recently. I don't know if you guys heard those reports. We didn't talk about it in great detail because I was hearing conflicted reports from my people. And sure enough, I ended up hearing that it was totally debunked. Keith Lee did not walk out of AEW. So once again, my people look to be right. I'll try to find out more information. But it looks like Keith Lee did not walk out of AEW. But that's another story that I'll wait for more details on. But you just think of Keith Lee. He's been there the whole time. Recently, anyway. He had some health issues that took him out for a few months, but he's been there for a minute. And you remember in WWE when he went face-to-face with Roman and face-to-face with Brock Lesnar, and we said, I can't wait for these matches, and Keith Lee's going to be huge in this company. Before you know it, he's not even in the company. You say, AEW's going to use him much, much better. Goes over to AEW, and he's forgotten about. Athena, Ember Moon, one of the best female wrestlers in the world. You got to remind yourself she's over in ROH. Champion, no champion, you wouldn't know. But even bigger stars, Bryan Danielson, he's injured and out, but a lot of people don't bat an eyelash because they have so much talent. There's times you forget Bryan Danielson wasn't on the show. You got Sting, Mox, Adam Cole Bebe, who was the guy in NXT. And just now, he's finally gaining momentum with this MJF thing. For the first several months, winning an Owen Hart tournament was not going to put this guy on the map in AEW. The roster was so oversaturated that you're going to have to do much more than that. MJF, of course, homegrown talent. I don't even know how many more, man. Claudio, formerly known as Cesaro, he's in this company. I mean, Chris Jericho, Kenny Omega, homegrown. You can't even fathom how many stars this company has. Wardlow was a fucking superstar. They fucked him up 5 times. But whether it's homegrown or they got him from WWE, the company has so many stars. Christian has been an afterthought for the most part. Recently, starting to hit a little bit of a stride, holding around that championship. He just got put into All In, by the way. They took out AR Fox, I believe, in that coffin match against Sting and Darby Allin. So Christian will be tagging up with Swerve Strickland. But even Christian was an afterthought for the most part. Just kind of the third wheel of a jungle boy and a dinosaur, the Luchasaurus. My point in all this is that Edge could easily go there, and if it's not done correctly, he's just another spoke on the wheel of AEW. You don't want to see that, so do this properly. Does he show up in October? Maybe November. You remember, WWE has 2 big events in November. The first part of November, they're going to have, I believe it's the first week, over in Saudi Arabia, their next big Saudi event. And at the end of September, they have Survivor Series. Now, right in the middle, what is it, Full Gear, I want to say? I always get that and Fight for the Fallen mixed up, but Fight for the Fallen was recently. Full Gear, I believe. Either way, they have a big event right between WWE's Big 2 in November. Maybe that's the perfect time to bring in Edge. So I'm just setting you guys up for this report. A few people are saying, yeah, we're hearing the same thing. I think it was PW Torch first brought this out. And then a couple other people did say, ooh, we're hearing the same thing. I just have to question how reputable. So I want more details and information on it. But that is a report. I figured I'd discuss it. Because if it gains traction, could you guys fathom Edge in AEW? Like, realistically, at first it was just like, oh, that'll never happen. He's a lifer in WWE. But could you really think about Edge in AEW? According to these reports, the possibility just went up a high percentage. I want to go over to, if you don't mind, the all-in changes that I was talking about in yesterday's podcast. I said a few of those changes, because Tony Khan said there's going to be a lot of changes as we get closer. And several of those we heard from reputable people that several of those changes could be made on Dynamite last night. Well, I love how they took out Phoenix. We heard that he wasn't going to be a part of All In. I love how they took him out last night with the Combat Club. And Santana and Ortiz. And that was like a club to the dome piece or something. They took out Phoenix. I love how they just didn't say, hey, he's just not going to be there. No, they told you. They put it in the story. He ain't going to be here because he just got his ass whooped. So Phoenix absolutely taken off the card. And he was written off of it. That's cool. When you actually care about what is happening. And I don't want to pit a company against the other, man. You know, going against the whole tribalism thing, you know, and compare the companies. But WWE too often does so many things without any explanation whatsoever. And it's one of the things we can't stand. So you just say, oh, Phoenix won't be there. And behind the scenes, we know it's visa/travel issues is what we've been told. But the audience that just watches the shows and doesn't go on their socials or the interweb machine or listen to podcasts, they're going to wonder what happened to Rey Fenix. Well, there you go. It's right there in the story. So much praise over to AEW for caring about that. Phoenix written off that show, definitely out. Now, AR Fox taken out off of All In as well, replaced, as I just aforementioned, by Christian. Another massive change. As we talked about in yesterday's podcast, Chris Jericho's Fozzy will be playing Jericho to the ring, so Jericho will be singing himself to the ring. Another big development there. We're hearing that Goldberg is still a very real possibility to show up at All In. I don't know who needs to see that, who wants to see it. But there is a possibility. We were hoping now it is either going to be debunked or we know for sure. We're just hearing there is still a high possibility that could happen. What else? 95,000 at last check pay-per-view buys already. They just eclipsed 90,000 when we did the podcast yesterday. That doesn't sound like a lot. 5,000, that's it in a day? That's actually pretty damn good. If they can get to 100,000 by the weekend, by mid-Friday, midday tomorrow, if they can pull 100,000 buy rates already, when most buy rates come on the weekend itself, that could solidify them at approximately 150 to 160,000 buy rate on the pay-per-views. Bare minimum 150 to 160. They're on pace to do that if they can eclipse 100,000 by mid-afternoon tomorrow. And from yesterday's podcast to this morning, as of recording, I can speak, the recording of this podcast, it's early morning. By the time you guys get this, it'll be afternoon. So maybe they'll be closer to 100,000. But that was in one day 5. So one more day, you'll absolutely, I believe, be eclipsing 100,000. To put that in perspective, guys, for some wayfinding numbers-wise, the Double or Nothing event for AEW pulled just under 140,000 buy rate. 140,000 pay-per-view buys. Just under. For Double or Nothing, 140,000. So if they're already going to eclipse 100,000 going into the weekend where they get the bulk of the pay-per-view buys, they're sitting pretty good. Now, if anybody was thinking they were going to pull 200,000 plus because they sold 85,000 tickets for Wembley, it doesn't translate to the States. It doesn't work like that. And that's what I always try to tell you guys. Just because an event is selling out, whether it's 100 people or 100,000 people, it doesn't translate to an audience growing in other areas of the world. Here in the States, the number for AEW Dynamite will stay between 850 and 950 tops. Now, again, we don't have the number from last night. This is the go-home show. It could be inflated, maybe 950, maybe even 975. I don't know if it was enough to do 1 million, but you could see an inflated number than what we've been seeing. But still, 850 to 950. So just selling out Wembley is not going to bring more viewers to AEW's product, at least not stateswide. It doesn't work that way. So a lot of people who are like, oh, this is going to be 200 to 250,000 buys pay-per-view-wise. No, it doesn't work like that, man. They sold out Wembley, UK. They're craving pro wrestling. But in the States, to a lot of people, it's just another event. So the fact that they're going to pull 10 to 20,000, at least, that's what they're on pace for. Another 10 to 20,000 buys, more than average. That's big. A sip of coffee, if you don't mind. All right, now, moving on to MJF. This is a dude that you know I give nothing but praise to. I think he's one of the best acts in pro wrestling. The reason that MJF captivates me like most is because he's one of those characters that 24/7, he just makes you believe. If he's on the social doohickey machine, he's more in character than he is not. He cares about what he does, the optics of it. If he's at an autograph signing and it's a little kid, he'll flip him off and tell the parents to fuck off. That's MJF. And that's what we grew up with, whether it was a Hulk Hogan, a Ric Flair, or a Roddy Piper, an Undertaker. Steve Austin, it didn't matter. They were that care, especially people like Warrior, Savage, kayfabe, still, there has to be a sliver of kayfabe at all times. It can't completely die, guys. If kayfabe ever truly goes away completely, well, pro wrestling as a whole goes with it. So MJF is a dude that, deserves all the praise I feel that we give him on this channel. But listen to this quote here. Now, he's talking about tribalism. Now, obviously, that's a real thing, and it's so stupid. You can't help nowadays but to laugh at it. If you've been doing this as long as like BC has in the podcast game, you can't help but laugh at it. And I'm sure many of the wrestlers just roll their eyes at it. Tribalism is a real thing. And if you guys don't know what that is, it's when you just love one promotion over the other and you just rag on the other promotion. Or you don't want to hear anything wrong with the company that you love. That's not just being a fan, that's tribalism, right? A fan knows when something is bad. Like my Yankees right now, one of the worst teams in baseball, right? And we have been ripping them apart. If you're a Yankee fan, you've been destroying this team. And for justified reasons. I don't care if you've won 27 championships or 87 championships. You suck so badly this season, and it's unacceptable. So we rip it apart. We're not ripping it apart because we hate the Yankees. We love the Yankees. That's what being a fan is, right? We're going to see what Jordan Love has with my Green Bay Packers. If they suck, they're going to know about it. We are going to boo. We are going to bitch, complain, moan to management, make sure that the correct changes are made so that we can help management put out a team that we enjoy and that is good. That's what being a fan is. That's why critiquing pro wrestling the way that we do on this channel is very important. We just don't say that everything is cookie cutter rainbows. Every morning you wake up, WWE, AEW, the local bingo hall, everything is on fire. Everything is awesome. No, it's not. If you want it to truly be awesome, we have to be honest. So what we do on this channel is we critique professional wrestling ruthlessly, but ruthlessly in an honest and most amplified of truthful ways. The good, the bad, and the ugly, in the hopes that it gets better. So, tribalism is when you don't want to hear what is wrong with your company. And when you've been doing this as long as BC has, you know tribalism is there, man. If you, any time, for 6 years, I've had this podcast, over 5 years for sure, about 6 years, I would say. And we rip WWE a lot. And it's justified because for most of those 6 years, if not its entirety, the product has not been what it should be. So we rip a lot of these shows apart in hopes that it gets better. Now, you get a lot of fans, a lot of WWE tribalists that'll say, oh, you're just an AEW fanboy, right? And you're like, well, AEW fanboy, but I absolutely rip them apart as well when necessary. And when I do, then you have the AEW audience or tribalism part of the audience, the tribalist, who say, well, you're a WWE fanboy. Well, for 6 years, I've been ripping WWE apart. What do you possibly... So you just don't listen, or you just want to bash the other promotion and put on the earmuffs, block your ears when it has to do with the company you love, right? That's tribalism. It's hilarious because it never makes sense. But that's a tribalist fan. They just don't make sense. They're just about their company. And usually what it is, and this is why I say you got to laugh at it or roll your eyes to the back of your dome piece, because you can't take it seriously. What it usually is with a lot of these tribalists is fans, I use that loosely and with quotes, that don't actually watch the other show or product. So in other words, a lot of these AEW tribalists, they don't actually watch WWE, or vice versa. The WWE tribalists, they don't actually watch AEW. They just rag on it. Because when people don't know about a subject and it's being talked about, and they'd rather talk about something else like the company they love because they know more about it, what they'll do is they just rag on it because they don't know about it. And the easiest thing to do is rag on it because it justifies them not watching it. And it just enhances the tribalism even more. So you have people bashing something and they don't even know about it. That's where the tribalism is laughable. And that's why on this channel I always vow to keep it straight down the middle. I will rip WWE, AEW, or the local bingo hall, whichever promotion I decide to cover. I will rip it for justified reasons. I will praise it for justified reasons. But you'll always get it the same for everything that I cover on this channel. But tribalism is usually a lot of the audience that doesn't watch the other promotion, so they just bash it. So MJF was recently asked about this tribalism. This is a quote from MJF. I just wanted to set that up for you in case you don't really know what tribalism is, right? It's not just being a fan of a company. It's a level of stupidity within the fandom. So MJF says, realistically, this is a quote, realistically, the better the two companies are doing, the more money we're going to make. So stop arguing. He says to fans, well, the more money that you make isn't going to make fans... are they seeing the money? If MJF gets a $4 million contract for 5 years from WWE next year, or AEW renews for $4 million in 4 years, that's way high, by the way. He's not going to get that. But let's just say that's the number. Why are fans going to stop tribalism because MJF just got more rich? So I don't know where that's coming from. But anyway, stop arguing. We're all going to make more money if the companies do better. He says we're all having a freaking blast. He says I'm watching LA Knight and Cody Rhodes every week and I'm having a blast. He says just like fans out there are watching Better Than You, baby. Having a blast. If you guys don't know, that's his tag team with Adam Cole. Just throwing that out there because, again, there's some people that don't watch AEW and you don't know what Better Than You, baby is. That's a tag team. And they're actually going to be facing each other at All In this Sunday night in the main event. Anyway, just like everybody is watching Better Than You, Baby, and having a blast, I'm watching Cody Rhodes and LA Knight and having a blast. He says there's so much great professional wrestling going on, and there's more than enough room for it, clearly. All right, now, here's the problem with that, okay? There's so much great professional wrestling going on, and there's more than enough room for it, clearly. Now, a couple of issues with that. If it was so great, right, let's put away ticket sales, right? People just want to go to events. We know that. You can inflate the ticket prices, and people want to go out. We understand that. Ratings-wise, you're not pulling in audiences, right? Audiences are leaving in droves. Even Dynamite's rating, they used to pull 950 every single Wednesday night. Their new normal is around 850. Now, closer to All In, last night's Dynamite may have pulled in maybe back to 950. We'll see. But they're roughly 850. So even the AEW tried and true diehard fans have turned away in droves. Not just WWE's, which just lost another 170,000 on their Monday Night Raw audience from last week to this week alone. So audience just don't care, right? Last year's Raw rating was just over 2 million. This week they pulled 1.59. So they lost over 400,000 viewers in 1 year, year over year. Right, viewers are turning away in droves. It doesn't matter if you count the cord cutting or streaming services or watching the highlights the next day on platforms like this. You can add in all the metrics. It's nowhere near the number it would be back years ago. So we know for a fact, record revenue for ticket sales, that's awesome. Countries willing to pay companies like WWE tens and hundreds of millions of dollars to bring their performers to their country, that's great. The WWE business model is booming. AEW is having a damn good weekend this week, but Tony Khan admits he's not actually pulling in profit yet for AEW. And by now, he should have been pulling in substantial profit. But that's how long it takes. That's how much the wrestling business has went backwards many steps. So you say so much great professional wrestling. Yeah, great wrestlers, great wrestling matches. But it's clear that it doesn't captivate the majority. It's like a niche here, a niche over there, a niche here. Oh, I have free time tonight. I'll tune in tonight. The ratings are all over the place because there's no consistency, and there's no consistency because there's no more FOMO, no fear of missing out. You can watch a couple of weeks and then go away for 2 months. Come back for a week, go away for a month and a half. It's not must-see TV. It's when I'm free TV. Whenever I'm free and available, I will watch. It's the same theory, if you will. I'll use that word. No pun intended to Austin. But it's the same theory of, well, you look at these wrestling matches. They're better wrestling matches today than ever before. But says who? Because of the moves, the oohs and the ahs and the chants? Let's be honest, because that's what we are in this podcast, right? Like BC, I'm sure there's many of you guys that have watched matches in the past that didn't have 10 "This is awesome" chants or 7 "Fight Forever" chants. Matches I've seen 1,000 times, like Rock Hogan, WrestleMania, what was that, 17? Keep wanting to say 18. I think it was 17, possibly 18. So that's how many WrestleManias we're at now. WrestleMania 40's coming up. But back when it was in the teens, Hulk Hogan and The Rock, Shawn Michaels, Undertaker, 25. But let's go. That was actually good. Just a lot of psychology and selling. But let's go to Hulk Hogan, Ultimate Warrior, WrestleMania 6, right? These are two dudes that would not be considered the best actual wrestlers, like move for move. Hulk Hogan, the original 5 moves of Doom, dude. He's got the punches, he's got the clothesline, the big boot, the body slam, the leg drop, and then the Ultimate Warrior, which much of the business pans for being such a horrible wrestler, supposedly. But how many times have a lot of you guys like BC, if you're a little bit older anyway, how many times did you watch Warrior Hogan from WrestleMania 6? Probably 1,000 times. Savage Ric Flair, WrestleMania 8. Big Boss Man Mountie or Big Boss Man Nails? Right? Because those matches you cared about. The story behind them. How you felt watching them, the characters alone, let alone them in that ring together. You could get punches, kicks, clotheslines, and body slams for 20 minutes. And man, you felt something. Now you go to today, a lot of the matches, I can't tell you that I watched Bryan Danielson versus Kenny Omega for an hour long or Hangman Page for an hour. As much as we did This Is Awesome and Fight Forever, all those chants, I can't tell you I ever went back and watched any of those matches a second time. I can't tell you I went back and watched AJ Styles versus Finn Balor in WWE a second time. I cannot tell you that I watched these supposed bangers and clangers. I can't tell you that I go back ever and watch them a second time. We ooh, we ah, we do the chants. You go on your social doohickey machine. You talk about what a banger and a clanger you just witnessed, and you forget about it 20 minutes later because we're on to the next flip and die fest. Spot fest. It's true. That's exactly why people don't watch matches back anymore. Yes, it's a different era, right? Attention. The capacity to actually go back and watch something you've already seen is much different today, no question. But that's the problem. That's the problem. There's nothing that makes you even want to do that. Whereas still to this day, if I come across Warrior Hogan or a Big Boss Man match, yep, I'm taking the minutes even if I don't have them to watch it. You give me 4 minutes of Danielson Hangman or Danielson Omega, I don't want to watch 4 minutes of that again. I know it was good when I saw it. That was great. We did the chants. It's not worth going back and watching a second time. The care is not there. How truly awesome is it? So MJF says, there's more. What was the quote? He says, there's so much great professional wrestling going on, and there's more than enough room for it, clearly. A lot of great wrestling, right? There's probably 7,000 amazing wrestlers right now as I speak. And they all look like one another. They're all coming off the assembly line like it's an Amazon distribution center. Every wrestler comes in a cardboard box. They're shipped off the distribution line. They're sent off to different areas in the world. And they put on bangers and clangers and great wrestling matches. And they do everything that they learned back in their backyard on the trampoline. And they all have one thing in common. We don't care. So that's one thing there that you say, okay, well, there's so much great wrestling. If it was so great, we wouldn't just be talking about ticket sales in the UK or WrestleMania because the audience you have left is willing to pay that price that they inflate. No, we'll be talking about, is the audience as big as it once was for pro wrestling? Not even close. And that's with all of the cord cutting. All the people that watch the highlights the next day, all the people that watch on delayed viewing, everything you could think of. If you add it together, it's nowhere near the audience we had just 20 years ago even. 15 years ago. 10 years ago. How great is it truly? You know, there's a lot of fans that say it won't be great until you get more larger-than-life characters. Storylines that captivate us. Not just one in WWE like the Bloodline. And in AEW, they don't even have a story like the Bloodline, sadly. Until you get things like that in order, then pro wrestling can truly hit a boom period. But companies like WWE making record revenue, that's not a boom period for pro wrestling. The second thing is, for MJF, and again, this is a dude I highly respect and praise on this channel and will continue to do so for justified reasons. But when he says, just stop arguing, when both companies do good, we're making more money, meaning the talent. Well, that's great for you. That's not going to make people stop arguing. But on top of that, as much as tribalism is goofy and it's stupid and you laugh at it, you can't on your shows take so many shots at your opposition. Your boss can't literally say we're in a war with the WWE, supposedly. That's what he said as a quote. We're not seeing the war. It's nowhere near that. I mean, they're having trouble trying to fend off NXT right now, which just went up another 40,000 in the ratings and have closed into 100, 150 to them in the ratings. So I don't know what war Tony Khan's talking about, but when your boss is saying that, when you're taking so many shots at WWE over the weeks and the months, and I'm not saying WWE hasn't either, it's mostly been Paul Levesque McMahon, by the way. That's why a lot of people continue to call him Petty Paul. He just does not like AEW, and he always takes these potty shots. Congratulations, you beat our developmental. Remember that one too? It's a pissant t-shirt company. Remember that one? He goes on and on. He's always trying to bash them in some type of way. But mostly you're not seeing a lot of disses on screen with the WWE. With AEW, they have no problem throwing a lot of WWE shots out there. And recently, I mean, even if it's small, right? Nothing big, BC. Like Chris Jericho on Dynamite last night, saying, all in, this is even bigger than WrestleMania. Well, you know, you didn't have to take that. Now, to a lot of you guys, that's no harm, no foul. What? He's just saying this is bigger than Mania. Attendance-wise, BC, it is. I get it. But you don't gotta say, you know what WrestleMania means to pro wrestling and especially WWE. You didn't necessarily have to say that our event is going to be bigger than WrestleMania. So all these little shots, they add up. And then you turn around on a podcast and you say, well, I don't understand tribalism. Like, why do people look at one company better than the other? You can't do what you do on the shows and then turn up in the podcast and go the opposite direction. Turn cheek, turn the blind eye, and go hypocrite status and contradict yourself. You can't do that. So it's got to be one way or the other. A lot of the AEW audience, a lot of the WWE audience that says, we don't like the tribalism, it needs to end now. Well, make sure you're starting with yourself. Make sure you're not throwing any shots out there. MJF, we cover him extensively. He's absolutely did a lot. Now, he's praised WWE too, character-wise, setting up that bidding war of 2024, so I got to give him credit on that. But he's also taken a lot of shots at them as well. So you can't say one thing and then go and say, man, isn't it weird how some fans love another company more to the point where they just bash the other company when they see you bashing them as well, or a lot of the wrestlers that are in that company. So it starts with the talent themselves. You know, what they see, it can spark the tribalism even more. And it's just, of course, it's goofy. And of course, most of us laugh at it now. But if you're going to say, it's so stupid, it should just stop and we should all love everything in pro wrestling, well, that can't happen until the potty shots stop. All right, what I want to do now, well, first, a swig of coffee, if you don't mind. But what I'd like to do now is go over some super chats from yesterday's podcast, man. Some Amplified Unit members chucking some coffee at the channel. I appreciate it, guys. Never needed. I always have to say that. Never needed. I'm always going to have an endless supply of coffee. But it's always appreciated. Just to know you guys go above and beyond to support the channel in BC, man. Just know that is right back to you guys, man. A huge thank you. And that's to start off with Jamal Straken. Jamal with a 2-spot coffee. Happy birthday, BC. Thank you, Jamal. I appreciate that, man. If you guys don't know, this weekend is BC's birthday. We've been celebrating it kind of all week because I didn't know how many podcasts I was going to be able to dish out to you guys. And thankfully, I was able to be live for the Raw review this week. So that was my chance to, in front of the camera, say thank you to you guys for all the birthday wishes and birthday shout-outs. So, Jamal, I appreciate it, man. Jamal says, I think Sammy and KO should miss every other Raw and then go to SmackDown to start a feud with someone else other than the Judgment Day. I agree, Jamal. It's every single main event is Owens, Zayn, either in a straight-up tag match with the Judgment Day, or Cody Rhodes is with them in a 6-man schmoz, or it's Sethington, or it's Flip-Flops Flanagan, Matthew P.H. Riddle, and his painted fingernails. And it's just every week to the point where this week, finally, fans said no. And the third hour had a massive drop-off, and the final rating was a 1.59. And that's against no regular season football yet. There was a preseason game. That was it. It was a good one, yes, but it was preseason. What's going to happen when you get Bills-Jets in games like that? Are you really going to dip into the 1-3s? Are we really at that point where the audience has dipped that far, where that many people are no longer watching live on their big screens on their couch? Nobody needs to see the Judgment Day, KO, Sammy, and Cody anymore. We've seen it so many times. And I already went over the stats for you guys, man. 4 months since WrestleMania, 12 of those weeks have been some version of KO and Sammy, or Cody in a 6-man, or straight-up tag with the Judgment Day. 12 weeks out of 4 months. That's 3/4. We don't need to see it anymore. But every single Monday night, that's the main event they parade out there. So, Jamal, anyway, that was a long-winded response, but I cannot agree more, bro. I appreciate the birthday shout-out. I appreciate the coffee, bro. WWE, AEW, Marvel fan. 2-spot coffee, RIP, Terry Funk. No doubt, man. A couple of prayer emojis, and I'll add another one. WWE, AEW, Marvel fan. A true legend personified, man. Appreciate it, bro. Jimmy Fingers 19 with a 20 spot. Several coffees being chucked over to the channel and to BC. Always good to see gold member, channel member, just like WWE, AEW, Marvel fan. Jimmy Fingers 19. Let me give you a proper salute, man. It's audio format, straight up podcast, but I'm giving you a swig right here, bro. Salute, Jimmy Fingers 19. I appreciate you, dude. What up, BC? What up, Jimmy Fingers 19? Hunter? I like that. Hunter McMahon needs to do a discount double check. You guys don't know. That's the old Aaron Rodgers from the from that commercial. What is it, State Farm? The discount double check. Hunter McMahon needs to do a discount double check on those ugly tag titles. Do we really still need 2 sets of titles with only 3 tag teams in total on both rosters with no actual brand split? Before I keep going, Jimmy Fingers has more, but can I just make a comment? Of course, it's my podcast. Those are some of the ugliest titles I've ever seen. I always say this about those tag titles. They're basically crushed pennies or crushed dimes, right? Look at them. They look like they're crushed dimes. Like the currency, change, U.S. dimes. It looks like somebody just put little U.S. change, currency, and called them championships. It's sad. I don't even know what they were thinking. The old school tag titles I used to love. Demolition, the Animal and Hawk, Road Warriors, Legion of Doom would carry around, the Hart Foundation. Those tag titles look so good. I loved all those old school titles. The old school Winged Eagle World title, the old school Intercontinental Championship, and the old school World Tag titles. But yeah, and it doesn't even matter if they have 100 teams on each roster, Jimmy Fingers 19, or each brand, because all of them are irrelevant. New Day just got back from months off. You would have thought they would have a long-term game plan. Do you know what they're doing? They're dancing around with the Drew Snooze-and-Tire and Scooter McGee, Matthew Riddle, Flip-Flops Flanagan. That's it. That's what they're doing. No, you already could not care less about the New Day. The Viking Raiders, they were once called War Machine, once looked at as one of the most dominant tag teams with the brightest of futures in the tag division. And what are they now? Literally enhancement talents. And I don't even know what anybody else is. Even the tag division is in shambles. And if you go over to the women's side of things, it's even more drastic and dire. Jimmy Fingers 19 says, I say throw all 4 of them in the trash and rebrand one set of titles in the likeness of what the Hart Foundation, Demolition, the Colossal Connection, and LOD War. Jimmy Fingers 19, can I just say this? Unit, I did not even read that next line, man. I'm going across this right now. Completely, I literally name-bombed Hart Foundation, LOD, and Demolition without even seeing that line, Jimmy Fingers. I'm not even joking. It's incredible, because if you're a little bit of an older fan, not old, but if you're older, you remember how the tag team division was amazing. It was awesome. Literally the word awesome. Now that word is overused in pro wrestling, and it's usually used in circumstances and situations that don't call for that word to be used. But back then, the tag division was awesome. Even Money Incorporated. I don't care if it was the Killer Bees or the Fabulous Rougeau brothers. The Natural Disasters. Back then, when you put 2 individuals together like Tugboat and Earthquake, and they became natural disasters, you believed it. They had a really good theme song. You believed there was an actual natural disaster earthquake happening. They looked identical to one another when they put those damn singlets on. They were booked pretty badass. And the titles themselves looked prestigious. It looked like a title you would actually want to win. These new tag titles, you win them, and you want to buy something at the local candy store. Do you take these titles? They're basically as good as U.S. change currency. Anyway, that's awesome. You brought up some of the same tag teams I just did. Just quickly on another subject, says Jimmy Fingers 19. When Nakamura came in 6 years ago, what he did on Raw this past... Oh, just on another subject. When Nakamura came in 6 years ago, when he did on Raw this past Monday was show he should have always been presented. I don't know if I'm reading that correctly. He should have been a 2-time champion in his WWE stay. He should have beaten AJ at 35, and he should have beaten Jinder at SummerSlam in 2017. I don't think he ever recovered from those cooldowns. I love Shinsuke, but as phenomenal as his devious vignette on sing-along sets back was, I have no belief in Nakamura. That being said, I would love to be wrong. All I could say there with Nakamura is he was one of those individuals, like so many in WWE, where there was at least 3 or 4 times where you could have given him just a piece of that rocket and he was going to go off. And they decided to bring him back. They gave him 2 inches and then they took him back a mile. So everything you're saying is correct, but I can even broaden that out and say that Nakamura was ruined about 4 times. You know, Shinsuke he fell to the same things that a lot of the wrestlers in that company fall to. Just poor management to their character and to their services. Poor management of them. Lastly, I was into the Miz and LA Knight until he reverted back to Rodeo Clown Miz and got rolled up by Nakazawa. That devalues LA Knight's upcoming win, in my opinion. Sorry to be so negative today. I've said too much. I mean, you're right about the Miz and LA Knight, for sure. I said, what was it, a couple weeks ago? It wasn't even on Raw. It was like a WWE.com like promo or something, and Miz was incredible. And I said, we need more of that amplified Miz. And there was a chance. There was a chance that this was going to be really good with Miz and LA Knight. If you just highlight LA Knight and amplify the Miz. Instead, they went backwards. They did the opposite of highlighting LA Knight. They had him lose via a roll-up to one of the most boring dudes in the business, Austin Theory. Again, via a roll-up. And they de-amplified The Miz. And he's back out there Monday with his Karate Kid headband and his spacesuit robe. And he's doing the same regurgitated WWE promo. So what started out as something even involving The Miz, I understand, but it still could have been really good. And here we are. It's the same old process. I mean, if that's the best you got, let's just have both dudes lose via a roll-up every single week and cut lackluster promos on one another. Who's going to buy Payback to watch these two? They're not highlighting LA Knight correctly. And The Miz will not remain or consistently remain amplified. Anyway, couldn't agree with you more on that one. And Jimmy Figures 19 says, 19 out before I get into the yellow nail polish and how boring New Day and McIntyre is. Yeah, please do not get into that. Oh, Marone. Oh, I tell you, man. Matthew P.H. Riddle, Scooter McGee, Flip Flops Flanagan, and his neon yellow Naomi Trinity Fatu nail polish. Moving on. Jimmy Figures 19, appreciate you, dude. And it is indeed time to wake up. Get it. No, not that time. You should have already been woken up, gotten amplified. It's time for JR9 Gaming's Heatwave edition of the Amplified NXT Roundup. Now, before we get into this, let me get into the rating for NXT, and then we'll get to JR9 Gaming's review of it. If you guys don't know, JR9 Gaming, the right-hand man of the channel, extensively, intuitively watches NXT with a keenful eye, and then he gives the Amplified unit some amplified thoughts on the show. And BC cannot always catch it on Tuesdays. And because they don't pull 1 million in viewership, just like Dynamite and AEW, I can't review the shows anyway. Because the rule that I have on the channel, sometimes I throw a bonus. Sometimes I will review NXT and AEW. Just as a bonus for you guys. But you have to at least pull 1 million. Your show has to consistently pull 1 million, and then I'll review it. If enough people care about the show, then we'll do a podcast review on it. But NXT doesn't come near 1 million, not yet. And AEW did come so close, so many weeks, and then they just started going backwards. But that's a rule I have on the channel, so we don't really review it. So JR9 Gaming gives some in-depth, extensive thoughts on NXT. So anybody that watches it and likes to talk about it, that's what we do every week on the channel. So it's almost time for that, but I do want to talk about the rating. Last week, they pulled 680,000 viewers. This week, 720,000 viewers. They went up. Just a tad over it was, into the hundreds. 40,000 viewers. So, what that means is now we have to... Listen, Judgment Day is regurgitated and getting really stale and boring really quick. They're oversaturated. They're overexposed on the main roster. We know that. But they connect with NXT. And I'm not saying that people like JR9 Gaming and people that loved the NXT before all this influx of main roster talent is going to like that. But something about Judgment Day appearing and main roster talent, man, it does boost the ratings. And of course, WWE, especially Nick Khan and Paul Levesque McMahon, they're going to love that because that's going to help their new TV rights fees. They're going to hope that it increases the revenue they get should they renew that deal with NBC, Comcast, Universal, or take NXT somewhere else. So the Judgment Day showing up once again produces 40,000 more viewers, 720. So I just wanted to dish out the rating before we get into JR9's thoughts on the show. Now, first, we're going to start with the positives. JR9 Gaming says, and I quote, now, I didn't see any of the show. I saw one part before I get into this. And that was Tiffany Stratton backstage. And I guess she made a mistake. She accidentally listed in her promo in the ring that Becky Lynch had won the NXT Women's Championship. People gave her a lot of shit. So she cut a backstage promo and she said, I know, I made a mistake, whatever, but I don't even have time for Becky anyway right now. So that was the only time. That was a little bit of an LOL. Other than that, I saw nothing on the show. So this is all going to be news to BC as well. Positives. Trick vs. Dragunov was very good. Easily Trick's best match of his career. Both delivered the hard-hitting match we all expected them to have. Dragunov made sure to make Trick look strong throughout, but ultimately found a way to beat him after a fantastic middle rope Superman punch. I love that Superman punch. Dragunov's Superman punch, easily better than Roman's times 10. Just a great way to start the night. Now, hopefully Dragunov moves on to No Mercy, where he can actually dethrone Mello. So they'll have the rematch. Because I remember Mello just beat Dragunov. I wasn't necessarily happy with that decision, but Dragunov is that dude, man. Sounds like that was good. I heard a lot of positive things from that too, JR9. And that sounds like, I'll use your word, fantastic way to end that match. That Superman punch, man. I just remember what he did to Dijak, and it just, man, now takes two to tango. Dijak was phenomenal in selling that shit, as most people are that take these amazing Superman punches from Dragunov. But man, it brought to life Dragunov on a whole nother spectrum from, or at least to BC. So Dragunov is one of those dudes, man. And it sounds anyway, like Trick not just remained protected, but may have gained from this loss. And sometimes you can gain a victory in defeat. I tell you guys that. Like LA Knight being beat by Bray Wyatt, for instance. Whether it's a Mountain Dew match or a Hershey Kisses match. Sometimes you go in and come out of something, and even though you lost, there's victory there, right? You look at LA Knight, he's been one of the hottest lightning white hot stars in the business coming out of the Bray Wyatt feud. Trick Williams, from what it sounds like anyway, it sounds like Trick Williams might be better off, even with that L. Nathan Frazier versus Noam Dar was the best pure wrestling match of the night. Both have brilliant chemistry, which fits the Heritage Cup rules perfectly. One thing I liked in particular about this match was there wasn't any roll-up deciding a fall. That's a plus. I thought there was going to be a couple, Jen. I thought you were going to tell me that was going to be in the negatives. They went the full 6 rounds, so around an 18-minute match. All right, gave it some time. With Dar winning and capturing the cup for a third time, I do believe that's the right call. Oh, but Jared 9, I didn't even read the next line, and I was thinking the same thing. Ultimately, Dar winning was the correct call, as his character can use the cup a little more than Nathan. Plus, Nathan can now move on to bigger things, like possibly being the one to take the North American title from Dom. Ooh, is Frazier the person to do that, JR9? That's a bold statement. I mean, somebody like Dominic holding it, there's a lot of choices. All right, so that's a lot of stock. I don't mind from what I've seen from Frazier, I don't mind the dude at all. If they do it correctly, I'm on board with that. But I totally agree, and I didn't even see the thing, but I just know that Dar winning this match, I don't see any other way you cannot. I mean, that fits him to a T. That's his character, and it's only going to help develop him even more. Holding that cup and just having that title. Of the Heritage Cup winner, which is so obnoxious, but it works. Where did I leave off? I just really enjoy the Heritage Cup matches as a concept, since you can be really creative during every round, and Dar has mastered the match type. I honestly think he's one of the most underrated talents today. So charismatic with great in-ring ability. Yeah, I was just literally saying the same thought process there. The Heritage Cup, you can easily look at it as an obnoxious thing, but it works so well, and I think a lot of it has to do because Dar, it fits the motherfucker. Now, the negatives. Let me get a swig of coffee, because it looks like there's a hefty amount, so we're going to have to we gotta see if we're going to get amplified here. Let me just get a swig. All right, so the negatives from JR9 Gaming's Amplified Heatwave NXT review. Ava losing. I didn't hear anything about this yet, JR9. I forgot. She had her first match at a live event, I think Tampa, Florida. We covered this a little bit in one of the recent podcasts. She actually beat Ivy Nile. All right, this is going to be interesting. Ava losing to Ivy via tap out in 3 minutes. What? Was horrendous. I couldn't get really tell where Ava is at in terms of skill level with how short it was. Plus, it made her look so damn weak. Just awful booking, which quite literally does nothing for Ava or even Ivy. Not a good way to begin a singles career at all. Wow, I absolutely agree. Sadly, JR9, when you say in terms of skill level, you really can't even gauge where she's at because of that match, that's not good because that tells me they did that on purpose. That tells me they wanted to hide a lot of her non-progress. And that's the opposite of what I was hearing in that match. Now, I wasn't able to see any clips, video, anything on Ava versus Ivy at the house show, her debut of a singles match. I wasn't able to see anything on that. I was hearing that they were quite pleased by it. I also heard that there was room for improvement, but I thought that was to be expected. But now it looks like maybe that was highlighted, that there's a lot of room for improvement. Because if this was a 3-minute tap out, and you're saying you can't even gauge where she's at yet, that tells me that it is on purpose, and she's nowhere near where she needs to be. That's not good, man. She's been doing this for many, many months. By now, those with the natural it factor, people like, believe it or not, I know she's been booked horribly, and she hasn't put in the time or care that we were hoping for. But at first she did. Ronda Rousey actually picked this up pretty quickly. Kurt Angle really quickly. Logan Paul really quickly. Dominic Mysterio, he's kind of went backwards in recent months, but that first couple, he was really good. Picked it up really quickly. And if we're hearing that they're already giving her 3-minute tap-out matches, that's not good, man. All right, I don't want to spend too much time, but that's the first I'm hearing about that. So that's quite concerning. I'm going to try to find out more about that. But I agree, not a good way to begin a singles career at all. Also, Dyad vs. Creed was set up for next week. If the Creeds win, they are reinstated in NXT. What happened to how does that work? The match type is the big issue, as it will be a steel cage match, but there is one problem. On the same week, it's the Becky vs. Trish cage match. Like, why on earth would WWE have a cage match on NXT when they now have the pay-per-view that is going to have one as well? It's just going to overexpose the match time while diminishing both matches. It just hasn't been planned out. No, it's almost like they're not even talking to one another, right? Hey, they're doing a cage match. Let's do one too. Absolutely correct. Who's going on first? Hold on. So next week is the cage match. So that would be before Becky and Trish. So at least maybe NXT will get the bigger rub here then, Jeranon. Stratton's promo turned into a circus as Gigi, Blair, Kiana, Roxy all came out one by one to interrupt her, leading to a short brawl and a fatal 4-way number 1 contenders match being set up. I just can't stand these segments as they aren't creative in the slightest. Jer9, I don't know how, why, or where, but I actually did come across that. It was so bad. I think I was checking up on Roxy, and I actually saw that. It was... I forgot if Gigi was already... It was like a quick 30 seconds. And Roxy was in there. Blair was in there. Gigi's in there. And all of a sudden they brawl. Tiffany's out of her heels. And they just cut to the broadcast team. And we just went to something completely different. It's like they didn't even let it breathe. It was so horribly done. It was something you would expect in WWE over the last 10 years with how they run their females. Like the main roster. So, yeah, that was completely awful, unfortunately, because you had people I highly respect like Roxy, Stratton, and even Gigi in there. Now, hopefully Roxy, this is going on with the review report of Heatwave from JR9 Gaming, hopefully Roxy wins as Tiff versus her at No Mercy would definitely be the move to make, but I don't need or want to see the Fatal 4-Way to get to that point. All they had to do was have Roxy interrupt Tiff to kick off a creative and fun story leading up to the pay-per-view. This is what they do. They just throw everyone out there together because they don't want to get creative. They don't want to take the time to make two individuals the primary focus. We'll bring a bunch of people. We'll hope that everybody gets good exposure and that the fans, the audience, will like all of them. That's not how it works. Overexposure to the highest degree. Too many moving parts. Too many people out there. You don't even have the time or the chance to propel or put one or two up on a pedestal because it becomes a circus. That's why I can't stand these schmaz matches either. JR9, yeah, it sounds like an absolute sideshow. They also teased Becky versus Tiff, as Tiff said she's a better champ than Becky. Becky responded on social with, "I haven't been NXT champ yet." I really hope it doesn't happen, as Becky can't be going down to NXT to lose, and she absolutely shouldn't be dethroning Tiff. It's better to wait and do that match once Tiff goes on the main roster. You could even do it as her first story on the main roster to establish her to the world, but doing it in NXT just would be a waste. Yeah, and this is something, man, when they find out that there's some buzz about it, they won't hesitate to send Becky to NXT to have a match with Tiff. And this company, JR9, they would not hesitate to have Tiff drop the title to Becky and Becky parade the title. And don't get it twisted. Don't think for 1 second this company wouldn't have Becky versus Dana Brooke in NXT for the title. Oh, I know you don't want to think about it, but I wouldn't put it past it with what they're doing. And how desperate they are to try to pull in the highest ratings possible to pull in the most revenue for their next TV rights deal. Valkyria and Dragon Lee versus Dom and Ripley was pretty pointless. All that happened was Raquel took Ripley out, allowing Dragon to pin Dom. I just wasn't a fan of the match happening in the first place, and as much as I hate Dom as North American champ, I don't like him taking pins in meaningless matches. Judgment Day are literally stooges right now, and it sounds like even in NXT. Dominic with another loss. I believe Dominic took the L on Monday night too in the nonsensical six-man schmaz, didn't he? I think Kevin Owens hit like a KO stunner and defeated Dominic as well. Plus, Valkyria was a complete non-factor in this match, which makes the 2 months of the awful Ripley story even more pointless since there was no payoff. West vs. Mello did not land for me at all. Was way too rushed and for an NXT title match, which ultimately led to a very underwhelming match for the two talents. Same feeling I had to the Breaker vs. Mello matches. Mello hit a good-looking springboard DDT from the apron, though, through the announce table, onto West, but that was really the only good thing in the match. I really feel the face vs. face dynamic hurt the match, as I wasn't all that invested. And then the finish was just a bit stupid, really, as West was supposed to miss a suicide dive and crash through the barricade. But unfortunately, West clipped the bottom rope and only barely hit it with his head. It looked nasty and ultimately very unnecessary. I can't stand the dives in general, but to add a risk like that just for a TV episode is just not worth it. I really wish talents would realize these risks are just pointless. It led to Mello hitting nothing but net for the victory, and then we just went off the air. No post-match activity, which didn't sit well with me, as there has to be a cliffhanger, especially on a TV special. Couldn't agree more, bro. Overall, Heatwave was a mixed bag. Like the first hour with Dragunov versus Trick and Dar versus Frazier was pretty good. The second hour, it just didn't deliver. Not the worst show, but I certainly can't call it good either, especially with the lackluster main event. JR9 Gaming, man. Thorough, detailed, extensive review of NXT Heatwave, and I appreciate it, dude. A lot of moving parts on this show. I'll use your word. Sounds like a mixed bag from what I'm hearing. A lot to look forward to. That's the good news. Dragunov's trajectory, where Trick goes from here. Dar, setting up something good, man. He looks like he's got a damn good career ahead of him. and a few other things, but some concerning as well, like Ava. Simone Johnson, The Rock's daughter, man, losing in 3 minutes via tap out. We got to find out more about that. And then the women doing this fatal four-way schmozzery when nobody's truly being highlighted because it turns into a sideshow circus. The women's division right now in NXT, which was always their primary focal point, which was always something that you could put up on a pedestal and rival that of Impact Wrestling's women's division, is now looking like it's becoming downgraded, diminished. And you're even saying that Valkyria was a non-factor in her mixed tag. And it sounds like some of the matches with Mello are just not landing. Like you're saying, the Braun Breaker match, this one with Wes. All right, we'll just leave it at mixed bag, Jer9 Gang. I think that's the perfect way to say it. That's your Heatwave edition of Jer9's Amplified NXT Roundup, guys. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. I enjoyed delivering it to you guys. Much respect, much love, appreciation over to Jer9 Gaming for taking the time to do that for the channel. Much appreciated, man. We'll be looking forward to next week's for sure. It definitely keeps me in the loop with NXT too, man. So I definitely appreciate that on another level. We'll end it right there. I know it was a long podcast, man. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Until next time, and there will be a next time. A lot coming up. Friday Night SmackDown soon. You got this weekend's All In, next week's All Out, and Payback for WWE. I mean, it is a wild time right now, man. A lot to cover. And no matter where I'm traveling to, whatever business I have to conduct, you guys will be getting a lot of content. So until next time, and there will be that next time, Top Guy, I'm out. BC saying check you.